powers that be. Sponsored by Alex R. White. Personal injury lawyers you can trust.
More than 3 weeks since Senator Mitch McConnell's high-profile hospitalization, we are now hearing about calls that members of Congress and political commentators are having with the senator. I'm Isaiah Kim-Martinez, joined by Doug Proffitt. Doug, this is big news.
Well, it is, Isaiah, because it's McConnell was hospitalized June 14th. This is the first time we have had any real substantial conversations. Of course, we know this is being triggered by the reports that he was in dire shape and may not come out of the hospital. Now we're getting reports of lengthy conversations over the past 2 days. I think we're going to see in these statements, and I know we're going to read a couple of them, it's interesting to me that we're not hearing them report what McConnell said back to them.
Right.
This is a one-sided conversation about what they discussed, but they are reporting full and lengthy conversations that are detailed.
And all pointing out 20-minute conversations, really leaning on the length of these reported calls with...
And the one we're going to talk about from Scott Jennings, I want to point him out because Scott Jennings is a lightning rod. People have
Republican.
their opinions of him. He is from Kentucky, lives in Louisville, founded a PR firm here in Louisville called Run Switch.
Longtime friend of Mitch McConnell.
He's a longtime friend of Mitch McConnell, and he's CNN's senior political commentator. Now, I view his as the most credible because he has always been close to Senator McConnell.
Yeah.
And they have, and he, remember McConnell put him in charge of Daniel Cameron's gubernatorial campaign to run it. He would get off the buses around Kentucky when Cameron was campaigning.
And here is what Scott Jennings said. This kind of came into our newsroom, like Doug said, was sort of the breaking news that we've been following. He said, quote, "I spoke to my old friend Mitch McConnell this morning, the senior senator from Kentucky. He says he's still recovering in the hospital. We talked for just shy of 20 minutes about Iran, Ukraine, the unfolding situation in Maine, my visit to the TR Presidential Library, referencing former President Theodore Roosevelt, and even a little bit of Senate history. I told him we want to see him back at work as soon as possible."
Let's talk about that line.
Yeah.
Key date we need to keep in mind. That is Monday, July 13th. That's when the Senate comes back.
Right. They've been on recess.
Full legislative session.
Yeah.
A lot of people early on were speculating, would Mitch McConnell return for that? It's getting close. That's coming up this in a few days from as we're recording this.
Yeah.
I don't know what his current shape is or whether he would be there Monday, July 13th, but we already know that the Republicans have desperately needed his votes. They've lost out on some legislation some key votes because he wasn't there.
Yeah. And Doug, to the point that you made earlier, and we don't want to overread into this, but a lot of these statements that we're seeing, and we're about to read another one from the U.S. Senate whip, are essentially these folks saying that I told Mitch McConnell this, I told the senator this. There hasn't been a lot revealed as far as what state the senator is in to have lengthy conversations as far as him weighing in on these issues. That was not covered in these statements. So I think
just this morning, we did ask his office again for a statement. I did, and they said, thank you for asking, and then resent me the statement from last week before the 4th of July.
Basically saying he's recovering and that he's engaged.
Thanks, everybody, for his help. And then, all of a sudden, these social media posts started being rolled out one after another, and these reflections on what he has been, the conversations with him.
And this dates back, of course, the reason why all this reporting is coming out from these independent journalists, mainly on X and other social media platforms, all stem from these 911 calls, the dispatch audio, where you hear emergency personnel basically tell the dispatcher that they're performing CPR and that there's somebody reportedly in cardiac arrest at Mitch McConnell's D.C. home. They never connect the dots, and his office hasn't, but it has been sort of assumed that is the senator. So that's where a lot of this has come from, these statements of, he's well, I'm talking to him about all the issues that's going on.
Now, our viewers have even been demanding to know more about what's going on. One woman said to me just today, if he were retired, this would be a whole different story. This would be the privacy thing we would respect, but he is our sitting senator. But I can tell you, following him for decades, he's extremely private when it comes to his health matters.
Sure.
He does not like to be seen in public as being infirm or being helped or even being shown in a wheelchair. He's always pushed back on that. He's held it close to the vest, being very prideful in a sense like that. So
certainly with his recent,
yes,
falls and flu-like symptoms
they've always
February.
sort of approached his health like Fort Knox. They don't want to give out a lot of information.
Sure. Real quick, before we show you the dispatch audio, I do want to read this statement from Senate Whip John Barrasso, of course, a sitting member of Congress. He says he spoke by phone with McConnell this afternoon. And Doug, we do want to note that everyone's sort of saying they talked to him at different times, this morning, yesterday, this afternoon. He says, again, roughly for 20 minutes, per a Barrasso spokeswoman, including on the Graham Plattner scandal, speaking about the Maine U.S. Senate race and the recent Supreme Court ruling on coordinated spending limits.
A lot of the messages seem to be the same about having the same conversation.
The same topics.
Maybe that's because they're mostly all politicians, and that's what they want to talk about.
But that is what you're seeing on CNN, Fox News. No matter what you're seeing, political coverage, it has been these big national topics. And we do want to play for you, again, some of this audio. There wasn't a lot of it, but it certainly invited some feedback from some of the big political leaders in Kentucky just a few days ago. Dispatch calls from the day Senator Mitch McConnell was hospitalized last month reveal some of the communication from EMS workers after arriving at his D.C. home.
I had 3 communications. East Army supervisor, CPR in progress.
We hear that emergency medical crews perform CPR on a person the dispatcher describes as unconscious. It comes just 6 minutes after the dispatcher sent an advanced life support ambulance to the 84-year-old's home on the morning of June 14th. Then we hear the words cardiac arrest.
EMS to respond for cardiac arrest.
The attention and questions surrounding McConnell's health continue to grow, now on day 18 since he was admitted to the hospital. His office told us he's receiving excellent care and is engaged with Senate duties and Kentucky issues. But they also said he did not vote on Capitol Hill last week.
Do you believe his office has been straightforward enough with information?
Well, his office hasn't communicated with me.
Hours before McConnell's office confirmed he continues to recover in the hospital, Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, a Democrat, said he did not want to speculate about his condition. But he did offer this to my question about transparency.
If he's been in the hospital for several weeks, they need to communicate more directly.
I don't think no information is necessarily good news, but it's not necessarily bad news either.
Republican State Representative John Hodgson of Fisherville tells me he last saw the senator this past Derby Day.
He's, still walking around, but he is old. He's in poor health, and I just hope and pray that the senator will, pull through whatever difficulties he's having and continue to serve till the end of the year.
In a statement, Charles Booker, the Democratic nominee in the race to replace McConnell, voiced concern about McConnell's health, saying he's keeping the family in his thoughts. But he also stated, it's time we know what's happening. When we don't know if our senator is alert, conscious, or capable of serving, that's not a partisan question. It's a Kentucky one. Meanwhile, the Republican nominee in the race, Congressman Andy Barr, said Kentucky is praying for a speedy recovery for Senator McConnell. We are grateful for his service to the Commonwealth. And obviously, Doug, we all wish the senator and his family well, but there are questions right now. There's a November election for Senator McConnell's seat, but he's not set to leave his seat until early January of 27. So if there were for any reason where maybe he wasn't in the state condition to fulfill the rest of his term, there are implications. There would be a special election under a state law that was passed in 24 here in Kentucky that essentially would allow each party to nominate a candidate, and then right there and then.
Most likely you would think Andy Barr
and Charles Booker would be the
nominee from on the Republican side would be nominated. And of course, Mitch McConnell is supporting Andy Barr.
Yeah.
Big time. I think that's an important question because for many generations of Kentuckians, Mitch McConnell has just been ever present. Mm-hmm. It's going to be strange when he leaves that office anyway on his own, when he finally retires after 41 years.
Sure.
Because he's been so dominant. I came across today where I didn't realize it was in fact McConnell's own biography page posted on his website that Time magazine named him 3 times one of the most 100 influential people in the United States, 3 different times.
Yeah.
It goes to show you the extent of what we're dealing with here. So the special election is interesting because the power used to be with the Kentucky governor, and the state legislature ripped it away from the governor. When Andy Beshear was in office, they took it away from the Democrat.
He used to be able to theoretically appoint whoever he wants in that situation. Then they made it so that he would have to pick from a list of possibly 3 Republicans, and now it's to the point where...
Imagine if the governor had the ability now to put his own person in there. The interim carries a lot of weight,
does.
as we saw what Mayor Craig Greenberg did in Louisville with the county clerk's position and David Yates. Pretty much anointed the next,
His name's
next person in the office.
Yeah, you get your tags renewed. His face is on there, so he's the clerk. Even
So
though
the
it's an interim.
legislature, I think, did not, because Kentucky's become so dominant Republican, did not want to give up that control. But it's another power they took away from the governor.
Sure. But we are going to revisit with the former chair of the Jefferson County Republican Party, someone who knows the politics of Kentucky, knows the influence Senator McConnell has had. We're going to ask him about the latest news on Mitch McConnell. That's coming up right here after this word from our sponsor.
Hi, I'm Sue, distracted driver.
Attorney Alex White. If you're injured, visit SueDistractedDriver.com.
Welcome back to the Powers That Be. We're joined now by attorney Jack Richardson of Louisville, who was the former Jefferson County Republican Party chair for nearly 10 years. Jack, thank you for taking the time here today.
Well, thank you. I enjoy being here.
Jack, you were in that office. We're talking about Mitch McConnell and his health right now. You were in that office when Mitch McConnell was sort of really hitting the nadir of his power, when he was finding his strength, when he was, being mentioned by Time magazine as one of the 100 most influential people in America. So you really know him well. Are we at the point with his health now, several weeks into the hospital, where it is time for his office to have a fuller accounting, for either Mitch McConnell to issue a statement or his office to say he is capable of staying as a U.S. Senator or he needs to move on? Do you believe we are at that point?
Well, Doug, first of all, good seeing you. It's been a while. Back in the day, we were seeing each other quite a bit when I was chairman. Far be it from me to counsel Mitch McConnell, who's been one of the most successful politicians
but people are
in
asking
Kentucky
that question.
history.
They want to know.
And that's reasonable. They're always curious. Everybody's always curious. And when you become a politician and you're an elected official, you do sacrifice some privacy, but not all of it. And everybody handles it a little bit different. We've all had illnesses, and we decide how we're going to handle it. You tell some people certain things because you don't want them to worry. You know that it's not that bad, but you don't want them to worry. And then some people have more disclosure. Some people, there's been some people in my family that have been hypochondriacs that like to talk about it all the time.
A few days, months left in office. People want to know, can he serve it out? The Senate reconvenes July 13th on Monday.
And that's one of the big issues, is the fact that the Senate hasn't been in session. And so he's been doing a lot of things behind the scenes. I've had a summary from Scott Jennings, a friend of mine, and seen the conversation they had with him. Jason Nemus in my office, he's had conversations with him. Mitch has been talking with leadership in Washington, D.C., also with his staff. Mitch has a lot up here. He knows a lot. He's fully there, as opposed to what we saw with Biden. And so the people who wanted to keep the Biden issue squelched are now, and did, are now attacking Mitch for, the issues that he's having now. And, at his age, of course you're going to have issues. As we all get older, we're going to have some issues. But you just don't go out and make them public all the time. Now, how you handle it, that's a flip of the coin. Everybody has a different way of handling certain things, particularly when they're so personal with regard to your health.
Because I've heard the Republican Attorney General here in the state of Kentucky, Russell Coleman, told something similar, right? That I think the words he used were modicum of privacy, right? There is a line. He wasn't willing to tell me exactly where that line is to him. But for you, as a constituent in Kentucky as well, where do you draw that line of, okay, we do need to know something, because this is a powerful seat that he's been in and is one of just 2 Senate seats in Kentucky. Where is that line for you?
We live in a time of reality TV. It's 24/7, and people are so addicted to it. The kids are on their phones all the time, on the screens all the time, and we're having problems with that right now, trying to take those things away from kids so they can just learn. So people have an addiction to every 4 seconds, 5 seconds, they've got to be stimulated in some way, and they're addicted to the news. And I guess I got to take some of the blame for that because with all the podcasts that I do, I have to keep up on the news all the time. But with regards to Mitch and all that, that's a decision, a personal decision that they have to make. And so, yeah, there's a
people have
modicum.
A point, though, to be frustrated. I mean, do people have a right to know? I think that's the bottom line question, right?
Well,
maybe
people,
not know
people
the
do.
details,
People do have a right to know. But again, where's the modicum? Where's that happy medium?
Mm-hmm.
And
They're looking for reassurance on whether he can even continue to serve.
Yeah.
Are you convinced?
Well, I
that
wish they had that concern back during Biden's time.
Are you convinced he can continue to serve?
Oh, yeah.
Sometime this summer.
Yes.
Okay. Governor Andy Beshear put out a letter today to Mitch McConnell, sent it to his office, saying it's time to have a full accounting of your health, to come clean, come for the public on whether you can still maintain that office. I'm paraphrasing that.
He said ability to serve.
Ability to serve. What would be your message? Based on what the governor is now weighing in, he's saying Kentuckians are asking that question.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, Beshear can shove it because he's never been honest with the Kentucky people. In fact, right now, he's going around the country trying to be president, telling people that he's responsible for Kentucky's surplus when he vetoed it. He's responsible for Kentucky's reduction in taxes when he vetoed it. He's the most overridden governor as far as vetoes in all of the history of Kentucky governors. So when Beshear becomes concerned about something, I'm not concerned about it because this man has never learned to tell the truth. And I've got a list of them, and I've done that with my podcast, I've done that with my writings, is I've started making a list of all of his lies and what he's doing.
But shouldn't the governor of Kentucky at least been told by somebody in his office, or Mitch himself, since he's making phone calls, hey, I'm going to get out of this, I'm going to recover, I'm going to return to the Senate?
Well, you've got a federal office, and then you've got the state. And the two are different. And you've got, with regard to your federal officers, that's where the supremacy clause comes in. There's little that the governor can do about it. And then, of course, we passed that law several years ago. What was it, 8 years ago or no? Maybe 3 or 4 years ago with regards to the governor doesn't get to appoint
2024.
Right, the special election.
April
the special election, because
Uh-huh.
we wanted, and I was the spearhead of that, because I believed that the people need to make the choice as to who their leader is going to be, and not an appointment that's going to be sold. We had that big scandal up in Illinois where the governor was selling Senate
But, the
seats.
timing of that law was interesting. McConnell was having some health problems. Was that the real trigger for that, Jack, since you said you were the impetus of it and behind it? Were you saying, look, he's having some issues here, we better shore up our ability to make the choice, not the governor?
Well, I think my greatest concern was the character of the person we had as governor. And because we've had scandals where governors in the past have sold the seat, I saw Andy Beshear as the type of person that would try to sell the seat. And he's totally political, and he tries to scam everybody that he's this great Christian. He's no more Christian than Ayatollah Khomeini, because I know what he's saying. I know what he's said. I've followed him. I've listed and chronicled all of his lies and the things that he does. And so when it came time, everybody was getting older in the Senate. Yes, Mitch was getting older,
and he had his fall. I believe it was in late 23, where he had the concussion. I might be a little off, but the timing to us in the media felt very intentional, right? Like, okay, they see that these are happening more frequently. Let's shore this up now.
Yeah. Well, the way that it coalesces, it seems like that. But my greatest concern was the appointment process from someone like Beshear.
So you're doing an end run because you don't like Andy Beshear. I mean, you took that ability away because he was the governor in office.
Yeah.
Would you have done that if Matt Bevin had been continuing on?
Well, Matt Bevin had his own problems, and
but he's a Republican.
But for the teachers' unions, he'd still be governor. And it's too bad that he didn't win.
We derail. Let's get back to McConnell's health. Do you believe that he would be effective and can maintain the office until November? Or does there need to be a special election?
No, my bottom line is that when there's a vacancy, let's let the people make the choice.
I want to ask, too, you've obviously had conversations with the senator. You have been at the same events with the senator, I believe, as recently as about 5 months ago. Mm-hmm. You said you were speaking at an event, or he spoke at an event that you were there for. Do you think his staff was at all surprised to see as much pushback during a Senate recess? Because he almost always acts sort of in front of things. It seems like the senator gets in front of a lot of things. Do you feel like at all that maybe this media frenzy that we've seen, all of a sudden they were sort of behind the eight ball and felt like they had to do something yesterday to put out these statements of all these conversations he's having? Do you think they're all surprised at how much people have attached to this?
No, I don't think that his office, look, they're all experts. I don't think their office was surprised at all. And after all, we're entering the dead days of summer. So we need something to report on.
But Jack, the Laura Loomer social media post had been out there where she was saying he was brain dead and was never coming back. And suddenly, all of a sudden, we have this flurry of phone calls to prove that Mitch McConnell is talking.
And Benny Johnson.
Don't you think
and
that
a lot of these people have a lot of respect for
Do you think
her.
that got the ball rolling, though?
Well, because there was so much hype over this thing and it was ginned up. And sometimes, what do? If you don't have a news story, you make one.
Well, listen,
And,
though, congressional.
and so that's, I think, what's happening here, the dog days of summer. And, and we're in recess. There's nothing for him to do at this point, but he is in charge. He's in communication with his staff and with the leadership in the Senate.
We were telling folks in the newsroom this, though. Congressional members miss time all the time. I mean, for unknown health reasons, and they do not get covered. They're like page 8 or 9 in the paper. This is page 1, seemingly since about a week ago. I mean, this situation is different. I mean, that's fair to say.
Well, there was a House Representative member who was out for 5 to 6 months on depression. I can't remember his name.
But McConnell's different. He's in a different atmosphere. 41 years, longest serving senator in Kentucky history.
Yes.
So he does rise to a different level where we are now at the point. You get feedback on the Jack's Corner podcast from your listeners. We get it from our viewers.
Yeah.
They are now saying it is time to hear somebody from that office to say McConnell can complete his job.
I mean, you hear it from the junkies. I mean, with my podcast, there's a lot of junkies that go in there that wants to give their 2 cents worth, and you just deal with it. But they're not necessarily the cross section or a representative of the state as a whole or all of my listeners. I think I'm in like 48 states now, but this is a select
But you
slice.
understand what they're saying.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
time to know.
Yeah.
And you agree with that.
And there's a lot of people out there that want to know things that they don't have any business knowing. And so there you get back into that modicum of privacy, and it's not for me to make the decision for Mitch as to what he should or shouldn't do in this situation. That's for he and his staff.
Say you were an aide in this situation. You're coming on July 13th when the Senate reconvenes. What do you tell him?
Well, first of all, you have more than one aide, and you've got a lot of talking heads in there that are giving you their perspective.
So you
just
have a
like
voice.
Trump has a bunch of aides around him, and he's being bombarded all the time. But at the end of the day, he has to make the decision. So just as Trump makes the decision, so does
What
Mitch
would you
have to make the
suggest?
decision.
Do you expect this to just kind of go away? Or do you expect this fire to continue to burn, in which case you have to act?
Yeah, I would think Monday there's going to be a lot of questions about Mitch
Yeah.
McConnell.
What do you
we
suggest?
we will see.
You have a lot of experience in this field, right? You've seen pretty much most things. I mean,
Yeah.
what would be your sense to him?
The Democrats do a lot of dancing, so that you might get some advice from the Democrats too. But my advice, and I don't have all the information, I don't have all the feedback, I don't have all the numbers coming in from around the country or from those who are really sage in the advice that they would give. So here I am sitting here trying to, off the cuff, tell Mitch what he should do come Monday. I would want to be in the position of listening to everybody. I think Scripture tells us a wise man takes counsel of many.
Do you
and
expect
I would
him to
want to take counsel of many within his group before I'd start giving any kind of.
Do you expect him to be there Monday, though, knowing what you know about him right now?
I don't know what the Senate calendar is. I really don't.
I mean, no, do you expect him to be there physically in person?
If he needs to be there, I don't know if you've, well, of course you have. You've seen pictures of the Senate chambers and somebody speaking, but when they go to pan out, there's nobody there.
There's no one there, yeah.
And so whether he shows up, has something to say, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just one last topic on this, because we know the senator has obviously served for decades here. What's kind of your sense on what comes next after this? Because we know that these questions on the special election are going to continue to go around. How do you expect this to play out in the next week, assuming we still know as little as we do now?
As far as his health or what he's going to do
Sort of
or
the
what
path-
the leadership's going to do?
Yeah, sort of the path forward for on Capitol Hill, right? As this continues to get attention.
Well, there's a lot of things that's going to compete for the attention. And we've got the SAVE Act. We've got a lot of things that are demanding Thune do certain things. I know that Mitch has a certain position on some of these big issues and votes that are to come up. And I don't know where he's going to land on those. I know there was a lot of behind-the-scenes thing going on with regards leading up to the primary here in Kentucky. And of course, in Kentucky, we've got focus on a Democrat nominee and a Republican nominee for Mitch's replacement. And so there's a lot of things competing for the news, but what's on his agenda and what's going to be demanding of him, I don't know at this point.
Well, because you were in office as the Jefferson County GOP chairman at a unique time, we at least ought to ask you, McConnell's legacy. In your mind, what's the top thing that speaks to that legacy as he does wind down his career and will leave office here at the end of the year?
He put Kentucky on the map. We had an inordinate amount of power in Kentucky for the size that we are as a state. Just think about it. And so we had prime positions in everything, and Mitch did well for the state. And to be the leader for as long as he was. So I think a lot of books are going to be written about it, historical books are going to be written about it, and hopefully he'll have a statue, which has been some controversy, but he'll hopefully have a
Senate president has led
statue
that charge, yeah.
in Frankfurt for him. But we need to be proud of these things because normally a state like us wouldn't get much attention, but he brought a lot of attention to Kentucky and in a good way.
He brought a lot of money back to Kentucky.
Yeah.
Which region of Kentucky do you think benefited the most from Mitch McConnell?
Mitch traveled the entire state, and I don't think that he was partial. And of course, Louisville being the economic engine for the state, of course, it's going to demand quite a bit because of what it does for the rest of the state insofar as bringing in so much money and being the headquarters of so many huge companies like UPS. And so you have to feed that demand, but knowing Mitch's schedule and how he has gone around the country, not the country, but the state, and in all 120 counties, he was well liked, and he gave everybody attention. And whenever you came up to talk to him, he was one-on-one with you, eye to eye. He wasn't looking over your shoulder for the next conversation. He was focused on you and what you had to say and how he was going to respond to you. And he did that from event to event to event. And I've been all around the state too, and I've been where he's been around the state, and I've seen how he's worked the crowds. And I think that's going to be his legacy. He built a following all across the state.
All right. Jack Richardson, attorney here in Louisville, and got your own podcast now. Jack's
And
the
I've
last couple of
authored
years.
3 books, and
There you go.
We're getting them out as quick as we can.
Former Jefferson County Republican Party chairman. Thanks so much for taking a few minutes with us.
Thank you for
Thank
letting
you,
me be here. Enjoyed it, y'all.
That's been the Powers That Be. We'll keep you updated on the senator and everything else here in Kentucky politics. Thanks so much for joining us. Take care.
Powers That Be, sponsored by Alex R. White. Personal injury lawyers you can trust.